By early 1945, the Allies were pushing hard into Germany. The Battle of the Bulge had been won, but it had come at a tremendous cost and the fighting was far from over. In the Alsace region of northeastern France, a stubborn German force, the 19th Army, was clinging to a large bridgehead on the west bank of the Rhine River. This bulge in the front line was known as the Colmar Pocket. It was a dagger aimed at the heart of the Allied supply lines, and it had to be eliminated. The initial Allied attempts to collapse the pocket had been tough. The terrain was a nightmare, flat open plains that turned into a muddy quagmire in the winter thaw, crisscrossed by rivers and canals. And the weather was atrocious, with freezing rain, fog, and snow, limiting air support and making life miserable for the soldiers on the ground. The Germans, a mix of veteran units and freshly raised Volksgrenadier divisions, were dug in deep, determined to hold this last piece of French soil. The French First Army had been battering away at the southern end of the pocket, but progress was slow and costly. The American Sixth Army Group, under General Jacob Devers, was tasked with smashing the northern shoulder. That's where our story really begins, with the U.S. 3rd Infantry Division. Nicknamed the Rock of the Marne for their famous stand in World War I, these soldiers were veterans of North Africa, Sicily, Italy, and the brutal campaign in southern France. They were tough, experienced, and about to face one of their greatest challenges. The plan, codenamed Operation Grand Slam, was audacious. Instead of a direct frontal assault, the Americans decided to do something unexpected. They would cross the icy Ill River, infiltrate behind the German front lines under the cover of darkness, and seize the crucial bridges over the Colmar Canal. If they could capture these bridges intact, they could trap the German forces between them and the advancing French, cutting off their escape route across the Rhine. It was a high-risk, high-reward gamble. On the night of January 22nd, the operation began. The men of the 3rd Division, bundled in winter gear, slipped into assault boats and began to paddle across the freezing, fast-flowing Ill River. The darkness was their only cover. The Germans knew an attack was coming, but they didn't expect it here or in this manner. The initial crossings were met with scattered resistance, but the Americans pushed through with terrifying speed and silence. Imagine the scene. Freezing water splashing into the boats, the muffled sounds of paddles, the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. Every soldier knew that if they were discovered, they would be sitting ducks on the water, but they made it. They established a bridgehead on the far bank and immediately began pushing inland, fighting through scattered German outposts in the woods and villages. Their primary objective was the town of Colmar itself and the vital canal bridges. The man leading this daring charge was a name that would become legendary, Audie Murphy. At this point, he was a company commander, and his leadership was about to be put to the ultimate test. As the 3rd Division advanced, they ran into fierce German counterattacks. The Germans, realizing the danger, threw everything they had at the American bridgehead. Tanks, artillery, and infantry desperately tried to push the Americans back into the river. The fighting was relentless, house to house, field to field. The Americans were isolated with their supply lines stretched thin across the river. They were outnumbered and outgunned in many of these small, vicious engagements. This is where the German command began to feel confident. They believed they had trapped this audacious American force. They had them caught with their backs to the river, and now they would methodically annihilate them. It was a classic pincer movement, and from the German maps, it looked like a guaranteed victory. But they underestimated two things: the resilience of the American GI and the brilliance of their commanders on the ground. For 5 days, the battle hung in the balance. The Germans squeezed the pocket tighter and tighter. The American bridgehead was shrinking, ammunition was low, casualties were mounting, and the cold was relentless. It looked like the German trap was about to spring shut. This brings us to January 26th, near the village of Holzwihr. Audie Murphy's unit, Company B, was down to just 19 effective men. They were ordered to hold a critical crossroads. Suddenly, out of the morning mist, came a massive German assault. 6 panzer tanks and waves of infantry, hundreds of them. Murphy ordered his men to pull back to a safer position while he stayed forward, alone, directing artillery fire onto the advancing Germans. With the Germans getting dangerously close, Murphy did the unthinkable. He spotted a burning, abandoned M10 tank destroyer nearby. He scrambled on top of it, swung its .50 caliber machine gun around, and opened fire on the enemy. For over an hour, completely exposed, and with a tank destroyer threatening to explode beneath him at any moment, Audie Murphy single-handedly held off the German attack. He cut down dozens of enemy soldiers, forcing the tanks to retreat without their infantry support. He was wounded in the leg, but only stopped when he ran out of ammunition. He then calmly walked back to his men, refused medical aid, and organized a successful counterattack. His actions that day would earn him the Medal of Honor. Murphy's stand was the turning point. It wasn't just an act of individual heroism. It broke the back of the strongest German counterattack. It shattered their confidence. The Germans thought they were trapping the Americans, but instead, they had charged headfirst into a wall of unyielding determination. While Murphy was holding the line, other American units were securing their positions and bringing more forces across the river. The trap the Germans had tried to set was now closing on them. With their main counterthrust broken, the German defenses began to crumble. The Americans, now reinforced, surged forward. They linked up with the French forces pushing up from the south. Suddenly, the German 19th Army was the one that was trapped. Over the next few days, the pocket collapsed completely. The result was a catastrophe for the Germans. They lost an estimated 6,000 soldiers in just those 5 crucial days of fighting in the American sector. Thousands more were captured as the Allies squeezed the pocket shut. By February 9th, the Colmar Pocket was eliminated. The west bank of the Rhine was clear. This incredible battle is a powerful testament to how quickly the tide of war can turn. The Germans saw an opportunity to encircle and destroy an American division, but they were met with a level of ferocity and tactical genius they never anticipated. Instead of trapping the hunter, they became the prey. It was a stunning victory, born from a daring plan and forged in the fire of combat by soldiers like Audie Murphy and the men of the 3rd Infantry Division. They didn't just survive the trap, they obliterated it. Thanks for joining us on this look back at a pivotal and often overlooked moment in history. The story of the Colmar Pocket is a reminder of the incredible courage and sacrifice of that generation. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into history. We'll see you in the next one.